On this week's Gridiron Report, we have the Lions continuing their tradition of losing on Thanksgiving, and then some college football talk for the people. And it's all brought to you by Pins and Aces, our favorite spot for all golf apparel needs. Use promo code GRIT for 21% off any product at pinsandaces.com. Let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim. From the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire. Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thunder and loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mic Drop Studios. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd, and the Detroit Lions are officially one loss away from their season being over after another Thanksgiving loss to the Green Bay Packers, 24-31. It's all sad.
Oh, dude, just another depressing Thanksgiving performance. Like, I feel like we've probably been able to say those words, like, I don't even know how many times in our lifetimes, but I don't have the stats in front of us, Ty, but I feel like we lose every single goddamn Thanksgiving game. Like, it's just, it's tale as old as time. Like, we always lose on Thanksgiving, and yeah, lo and behold, the Packers are the ones to do it once again. They did it 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was. They did it on Thursday. I'm so pissed for so many reasons. But just thought that just popped into my head. The Packers always play their best fucking game against us. Like, they have struggled like the whole season, except for the 2 times they play the Lions. They look like, fucking, I don't even know, 2019 LSU college football. Like, they just beating the piss out of everyone. Like, Jordan Love decides that he's a good quarterback every time he plays us. Like, they make plays. Why can't they just struggle for once against the Lions? But, I'll get off my soapbox. But yeah, season, you mentioned it, season's nearly over. We need to be relatively, pretty much perfect here on out. The Athletic I think it's given us like a 31% chance of making the playoffs. I think the NFL, it's a little bit higher, maybe around 40%. But yeah, dude, this is bad for so many different reasons. But season's close to being over, and it sucks.
See, I mean, it's on life support more so now than ever. I just did a real quick ChatGPT search. No idea if this is accurate or not. It says the Detroit Lions Thanksgiving Day record all time is 38-45, which pretty much checks out. I feel like it should be even a little more lopsided.
That's higher. That's way high. I was expecting way worse.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, so you mentioned it. We got to be pretty much perfect to end the season, and we'll get into the upcoming Thursday night game against the Cowboys here shortly. But I'm a broken man, dude. Like, this team has absolutely broken me. We went from having 2 of the smartest guys in the entire NFL, and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, to suddenly I'm thinking like, they're not even the top upper half of the NFL with how this team is constructed and the moves that they're making. It's so frustrating. Everything about this team, I literally hate. Like, I hate this team, which is such a night and day from last year, in which we were one of the most fun teams I've ever watched in the entire NFL. It's just night and day, and we'll get into it here in a second. But yeah, I mean, I am absolutely broken. This team, everything about this team sucks, top to bottom. The game itself, ruining Thanksgiving. Luckily, I think I'm pretty good at like disconnecting from the game and still enjoying Thanksgiving, so didn't ruin my day completely. But like, on top of the team playing so terribly, then you just had classic Lions stuff with the penalty, the false start on the goal line that was negated because of timeout, even though in all the replays you could clearly see that Matt LaFleur wasn't calling a timeout at that point in time. And maybe you just couldn't see it because of the angle, and he was actually screaming it. But then they asked Matt LaFleur after, and he gave a cheeky little wink to the camera, basically all but saying like, yeah, that was a pretty bad call.
Horrendous.
It was just a classic Lions Thanksgiving Day game, and we can get into the offense in a second. But yeah, I'm a broken man, dude.
Dude, yeah, it was horrible. And I mean, like, yeah, let's break down the game for a little bit. Like, just starting off, just spotting the Packers, just a quick 10 points in the first quarter. I know they actually scored their touchdown, I think, right in the beginning of the second quarter. But these slow starts from the offense, like, you can't do that. Biggest game of the season to date at home, and you just spot them 10 points. And the Lions on their first 2 drives, I think it was 9 plays for 16 total yards, 0 passing yards on those first 2 drives. Obviously 2 punts. Like, you can't just be spotting this team 10 points. A Packers team that's been struggling at times, and then you just spot him a quick 10. I hate that, man. Like it's obviously the Lions, they did answer a little bit later, but every time that we scored, I swear to God, we gave up a touchdown every time. And I was actually looking through the scoring drives, and it's literally like clockwork. Every time the Lions scored, they gave up a touchdown later. We'll talk about the defense in just a little bit, but yeah, dude, just like I hate the way they started. St. Brown obviously just goes down with an injury. Thought maybe it was a high ankle, thought maybe it was something somewhere else on his body, but it ended up being an ankle injury, a low ankle. So, he's probably going to be out for, who knows, maybe a week, maybe 3, you really don't know. He could come back sooner rather than later, but yeah, he didn't have a catch. I think it was, what was that, the first series of the game where he was out. So that sucked too. Like just all in all, like just a horrendous start.
Yeah, I think it was like his 30th game or something in a row. It broke a streak of like 30 games in a row in which he had a catch. And we'll get to the injuries as we kind of wrap up our review section here in the first section before we go to break. We'll get to some of the injuries and the injury talk, and we have a listener voicemail that kind of touches on that. But yeah, I mean, this was an exact repeat of week 1, which is exactly what we said we cannot do. It was like deja vu. Like we went into week 1. If you guys remember, you can go back and listen to that episode. We said, okay, Jordan Love isn't really that great. You make Josh Jacobs beat you. You stop Josh Jacobs, and then you make Jordan Love beat you, and you stop the run. And that's exactly what we did. But on the offensive side, the same exact thing happened. Our offensive line was just eaten alive by Micah Parsons. He finished the day with 2.5 sacks against this offensive line. I thought Jared Goff was actually okay, especially without having Amon-Ra St. Brown. He finished the day 20 of 26. We said last week, I think he put up like 46 passing attempts or something last week, which just isn't what he's meant to do. 20 out of 26, I think, is like right in his wheelhouse. Hit 256 yards for 2 touchdowns. Now, like, I feel like all those numbers they didn't complement each other. Football's this game where, like, you got to punch twice and, you got to answer and you got to do this. I feel like when the offense clicked, it was on drives that like were few and far between. So it wasn't like any sort of really moves or, any groove we can get into. Gibbs and Monty were pretty much non-existent. The rushing game was non-existent. Between the two of them, they just had 100 rushing yards on the day. Surprisingly, it was Jamison Williams, Tom Kennedy, and Isaac Tesla who really had to step up and do what they could to keep this offense afloat. And I actually shout out to them. I think all 3 of them really did. You called JMO out last week, said he was going to have a big game this week, and you were absolutely right on that. Tom Kennedy, the guy who is just a preseason hero every single year. He goes off for the Lions at preseason and just unfortunately becomes a cap casualty and he gets cut onto the practice squad. And he had a great game. He was returning punts, doing a great job. And it's like outside the offensive line, I thought the offense was okay, but you just cannot get anything going with that offensive line. That was such a piss poor performance from the offensive line. It was absolutely brutal. And I'm honestly, I'm just over it. Like, I'm so mad at Hank Fraley. I'm so mad at this offensive line. I'm mad at everyone involved.
Yeah, couldn't run the ball at all, and that boils down to the offensive line. Obviously, the Packers, we knew coming in they have a top 5 run defense, top 5 pass defense, so it was going to be tough sledding. But yeah, the Lions they didn't do enough. They didn't get the job done. They didn't there was no push from the run game, and then yeah, like you said, like Jared was pressured like left and right, and yeah, 3 sacks on the day for the Packers. Like yeah, I think Jared did good enough with what he could do. 256 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, you mentioned Tom Kennedy. Tom Kennedy legacy game, man. 4 catches, 36 yards. You mentioned that he's perennially on the practice squad. Got called up. I feel like that's still just an insanely good job to have. Like, he's still making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be on that Lions practice squad year in and year out. So yeah, shout out Tom who answered the bell when his name was called. JMO was awesome. 7 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. Loved what I saw out of him. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the stats, if you look at the game, like it was. I mean, the margins were razor thin. Like, I think both teams, like they virtually had the same amount of passing yards, same amount of rushing yards, and really, the game of inches, it boiled down to a couple of big calls that, yeah, the Lions, they obviously were going to go for it. We always do. There was the 4th down call right at midfield, handing the ball off to Gibbs out of the shotgun on 4th and 3. I think he got tackled for a loss. Inexcusable, insanely dumb play call, and in really a spot, obviously in hindsight, it's easy to say, punt the ball, make the Packers go 90. You have the best punter in the league, but even if you do go for it, just hated that play call. And then obviously, this was right out of halftime, I think. Packers took a deep shot, second play of their ensuing drive, and it was a 51-yard bomb to Christian Watkins. So yeah, just game of inches there. Later on in the 4th quarter, the Lions, electing to go for it. I think it was a 4th and 6 on maybe the 22-yard line of the Packers. And yeah, just, I mean, you're down 10 in that spot. I think that, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Take the points there. It's 4th and 6. It's not like you're a 4th and 1 and you got a great shot to get it. And then obviously didn't execute on that play. Goff threw a shitty ball. Still probably a catchable ball. J-Mo should have caught it, but I think neither guy executed. So yeah, just head-scratching decisions from the head coach that, is supposed to be, he's your general. He's your field general out there, and he's supposed to be, putting you in the best position to win. And I just think Dan Campbell hasn't been doing that lately.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're going from a season of like we had the best GM and the best head coach like combination in the entire NFL to now like saying like I disagreed with everything. I hate how this team is put together. I hate how they're playing games. I hate that the team's not ready. And it's like I'm so frustrated. I feel like someone needs to be fired. I don't know who it needs to be. Like this is a terrible season. Someone needs to be fired. I don't know who it needs to be. But yeah, I mean having Amon-Ra St. Brown go down. I know he's been up and down this entire season. He hasn't been super great at times. Having him go down, it's brutal. But yeah, you look at the numbers, like you said, it's almost exactly the same amount, basically the same amount of total yards, same amount of first downs. We had a few more penalties than they did, which is unexcusable. The fourth downs, though, like you said, we're 0 for 2. They were 3 for 3. In the red zones, they were in there twice. They punched in twice. We were down in the red zone 3 times, only punched it in twice. So like it was a game of inches. Mm-hmm. And we just couldn't. But like I said, watching it, like the numbers seem to say offensively they were pretty similar. But watching the game, I definitely felt like this offense was way more disconnected than than these numbers actually say. The offensive line was, I mean, it was a literal JV squad out there, and it's embarrassing. It's just one of the most frustrating ways to watch football. And then jumping over to the defensive side. You mentioned, the Packers being spotted, 10 quick points. I saw some stats online about how this Lions defense has started games, and safe to say it's absolutely piss fucking poor. So this year they have allowed 7 touchdowns on their first drive, which is 31st in the NFL. 35 first downs on their first drive, 31st in the NFL. 6.9 yards per play, which is tied for 29th in the NFL. 17.6% explosive play rate, which is 31st in the NFL, 65% third down conversion rate, which is 30th in the NFL, and then 100% red zone rate, which is obviously 32nd in the NFL on first drives. So if they're getting in the red zone, they're punching in for a touchdown. This team defensively is horrendous on the first drive. And when the offense has been so out of sync and so terrible with our offensive line, when the defense immediately goes down, you're playing from behind every single game. It's just not sustainable. So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Immediately, we're down 10-0, and like that just felt insurmountable with this team.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I definitely can see those numbers. It's been bad, but I didn't know it was that bad. Like you literally just rattled off, and it was 30th, 31st, or 32nd in the league in every single important statistic on defense. First drive of the game. Like I don't even know how that's possible. Like it's like, are you really that bad at game planning where like you can't? Granted, the other team. They're scripting their drives, but dude, like every team, this is football. Every team scripts their first drive. You're telling me you can't get off the field, a couple times? Like that's insane, man. And I think that does put pressure on the offense too. It's almost, most teams are going to be like, yeah, let's defer to the second half. It's almost like the Lions need to start, just taking the ball. I think they've done it from time to time. They have taken the ball. Usually they're deferring. Every team defers, but I don't know, man. When you have stats that bad, I think you got to take the ball. You got to start putting it in your own hands because that is just piss fucking poor. Yeah, we talked about Jordan Love just carving us up once again. Love was great. Love wins. 18 of 30, just 234 yards. So it's not like he was dicing us up for like 500, like I think Jameis did last week. But 4 touchdowns, and he was putting, he's dropping balls in buckets. Like I was very impressed with Jordan Love once again. Very similarly to the first game of the season in Lambeau, where he was making every big throw. He was obviously he's not perfect, but when it mattered most, big third downs, big fourth downs, Jordan Love is making the throws, and it's frustrating because I mentioned it already, but we've seen Jordan Love struggle so much this season. The Packers have dropped games that they absolutely should have won. They blow it. Their offense has been stagnant for large parts of this season. And of course, they're going to put it together before they play the Lions. It's what they do. The Packers love beating the Lions. It goes all the way back to, Rodgers and Favre before him and fucking, I don't know, Bart Starr. I think he might have played for the Packers. I have no idea. I'm ranting. But yeah, it's all bad. It's all bad, man. I put my hands up.
Yeah, when it rains it pours because all the number like we don't match up well against this Packers team whatsoever. Any way you slice it, we don't. And then on top of that, it's almost like the we see it a lot of times in the MLB where it's like pitch batters just have pitchers numbers, or and vice versa, pitchers just have batters numbers, in which it's almost like like in once or twice it happens, and then the narrative is out there, the numbers are out there, and then you better believe that batter knows that the pitcher can't pitch to him, or vice versa. The pitcher knows that batter can't touch anything he does. Then it's all in your head. And then you have the most, when that guy walks up to bat, I don't care if that guy's on a heater, you have their number. Jordan Love, he walks into whether I guess I should say walks into Ford Field or the Lions walk into Lambeau. Jordan Love isn't afraid whatsoever. I feel like it's just a combination of he's had success and then he just absolutely dominates us. But I will say, so we walked through the opening drive defense and how that is. There's some other numbers that are kind of that make a little more sense. So we know that this pressure is not very good. Like, not very good. This pressure is terrible from this team. Like, we'll get into Hutch here in a second, but the secondary is actually pretty decent. So the defensive line, they rank 32nd in average time to pressure. I brought up a few weeks ago that like the Lions technically we're in the top half of the NFL in pressures amount, but the time that it takes to get those pressures was the worst in the league, meaning that they're battling the offense and defensive line are battling, the secondary is doing their best to hold on, and then eventually the secondary covers the guys so much that eventually the defensive line gets pressure. We ranked 32nd in average time to pressure, despite being ranked 10th in NFL blitz, which basically means we're blitzing, but very, very slowly. Quarterbacks have an average time of throw of 2.99 seconds, which is among the most in the entire NFL. The secondary is actually pretty good. We allow the least amount of separation in coverage, but the longest depth of target, which just means that the QBs have all the time in the world to allow the routes to develop because the defensive line is not getting home and we're not providing any pressure. Just before the bye week, we were averaging 3.3 sacks per game. We have just 4 sacks in the last 4 games with no sacks in 2 of those. So 4 of those sacks, two of those games only housed those 4 sacks. It's been terrible. Hutch has 1.5 sack in all of November. Like, that is unacceptable from the guy that is supposed to be a top 1, maybe 2 at the position. You have 1.5 sacks in the month of November. That is unacceptable. It's terrible. I'm mad at Hutch. I'm mad at Calvin Benjamin for not scheming up defensive plays properly, and I'm sure as hell mad at Brad Holmes for not addressing this. It's not like this is something that like we are suddenly, I feel like we've said that. I almost would guarantee I have said this before. It's not like someone went down with an injury and now like we're suddenly left with this big hole, kind of like last year. Like, we knew what we needed in this offseason, and we just didn't do it. And so that's why it's even more frustrating that we just continue to try and be the smartest person in the room. And it's the same thing we just went through with the Tigers. Their stats were saying they were probably overperforming a little bit. They decided to go with their guys, didn't do anything at the trade deadline, and it came back to bite them in the ass. And hey, look at us now. 2 months later, exact same position, different sport.
Yeah, who would have thought, man? Dude, everyone and their brother knew that the Lions needed help at pass rush. We have for 2 years now. Obviously, Hutch going down last year, like you said. So, you can't really game plan for that. But, going into this year, like, we saw the roster and we're like, yeah, there are like literally 3 defensive ends on the entire fucking roster. Like, yeah, I feel like someone should be scratching their head at that. And yet, Brad Holmes did nothing. He's like, yeah, we have our guys. We have Marcus Davenport, who we're hoping is going to stay healthy for a whole season. Newsflash, he didn't. Shocker there. And obviously Hutch can't do it all himself. Like, he is getting doubled on so many plays. And, I'm not like an expert in, defensive pass rush schemes. Like, what do you do if your guy gets double teamed? For me, it's like, well, you got to have at least 2 guys who theoretically could get to the quarterback.
Yep.
And if you have that, then maybe, you're not getting double teamed on every play if you're Hutch. Like, and the Lions just so clearly don't have that. Like, none of their tackles are getting home. The defensive end, whoever it is, lined up outside of Hutch, is never getting home. Like, they're just never getting pressure. So teams are like, yeah, we're fine with having everyone else on an island. These guys suck. They can't get to the quarterback. We'll chip Hutch, left and right. And if we got 2 guys on him, he's obviously way less effective. So yeah, it's so frustrating because these are things that, like, it's not just like you and me are saying it and no one else is. Like, all of Detroit sports media, like, the casual fan knows that the Lions have needed more than just one pass rusher. Like, we're not asking for a Myles Garrett alongside Hutch or like a, Hendrickson alongside Hutch, but like, you need some depth because this is like, a full season of just struggling. And we all saw it coming. We saw the train coming from a mile away. And yet Brad Holmes and this team were like, yeah, we're going to stay on the tracks and just, ride with our guys. So fuck that, man. It's all shit. And you just said the numbers. We are literally the worst team in the league as far as getting pressures to quarterbacks, timely pressures to quarterbacks. And so yeah, obviously our secondary is going to get picked apart when quarterbacks have 3 seconds on every single throw to throw the ball. It's not fair to our corners. Yeah, they've been injured. Kirby's been injured. Our secondary's been injured. But either way, it doesn't matter who's out there. It doesn't matter if you got 2 all pros out there. If a quarterback has all day to throw, these guys are going to pick you apart. Yeah, man. Just it's all shit. It's all bad. It's almost like you need to kind of just not burn it down completely. Something's got to change. You got to make some changes because this team is not anywhere near where it needs to be.
I love that. We're not doing an overreaction Wednesday, but I love that because I'm in the same boat, and I think a lot of Detroit are or Detroit is. We do sports. We don't do grammar. We were so frustrated that someone's head has to roll. Someone has to pay for this. I mean, you mentioned the pressure. So we pressured Love on 14 plays, and pressuring is a lot of different stats or different publications consider pressuring different things. We technically pressured Jordan Love on 14 plays, which technically was the same amount as Jared Goff. I don't think I believe that. That's just what the news outlets are saying. When Jordan Love was pressured, he was 3 for 12 with 51 yards. When he wasn't pressured, he was 15 for 18 for 183 yards and 4 touchdowns. It doesn't take a goddamn monkey to figure this out. This is stuff. You get paid millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to figure this out and to make it not be the case, and it's not working. So we do have a listener voicemail because it was unfortunately even worse of a week for the NFL, or excuse me, for the Lions when it comes to injuries and stuff of that nature. So we do have a listener voicemail that kind of touches on that and a little bit about the Packers game. But you have anything before we jump into that?
Let's jump in the voicemail.
Just have a couple of things to say. First of all, I apologize. You have my anger management issue when it comes to the Lions. I can't imagine what you're going to go off on about the Green Bay game. I thought they sucked. I'm sure you do too. The other thing is, I want to talk about the defense with the Lions. For games now, they have been stellar. Although Aiden Hutchinson has gone dormant since he got his contract renewal. My thing is, watching the Packers game, I was losing my mind. Branch completely gave up on covering a guy, fell back, the guy caught a touchdown pass, and Branch just let it go. I think the defense has gotten to a point where they're like, well, the offense sucks. Why are we even trying? So that's my point. My other thing is, I'm concerned about all these injuries. Last year, I know injuries are part of the game, but last year we had key injuries. It doesn't seem like the training staff is preparing these guys properly to take these hits. They're getting busted up and hurt, and it just seems more abnormal than what the other teams in the NFL are getting. Those are my thoughts. Talk to you soon.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the voicemail, listener Greg. It's been a while since you called in, so I appreciate it. As a reminder, everyone can call into that listener voicemail. Give us your thoughts on the previous game. Give us your thoughts on anything Detroit sports. We'll talk about it. But I mean, we covered the game a lot about the Packers game. We covered the defense there. The Branch play that you're referring to, I don't know what exactly happened. He didn't really even fall down. He just gave up. I don't know if he thought he had more help from the cornerback, but I think it was Thomas Harper who was the one who was helping him back there, and they weren't on the same page. It was frustrating. And we're talking about the defense not really being able to play that well because of the offense. I mean, you're right. The defense has been playing pretty well. I feel like they have really great games and then really bad games. And I'm sure there's some sort of, that thought process of the offense goes out 3 and out. Defense got to go back out there. It definitely, football's a beautiful game and there's a lot of give and take. And so that definitely plays a part of it. But I think, like we just talked about with the pressures, I think it just all stems from up front. And if you can't get the pressure up front, then the defense is doomed as a whole. So I think that's kind of my thoughts on the game, the Packers game that we haven't covered. But your point about the injuries is one that we want to take a second to talk about because, like I said, it was a terrible week for the Lions with the Packers game and Thanksgiving and everything. But it kind of got even worse because we had a bunch of injury news. And I'll get to your point about the medical staff here in a second. But first and foremost, we had the news that Frank Ragnow was coming back. I didn't even cover that at this point because it seems like forever ago that was actually announced. Frank was coming back. It kind of seemed like it was almost like an understanding, which he was going to be taking the first half of the year off. If the offensive line didn't skip a beat without him, he would probably just ride off into the sunset and keep fishing his walleye and hunting up north. But with the offensive line struggling, I feel like it was kind of like a, hey, I'll come back midseason after I'm fully healthy if you need me. And that kind of obviously was the case. So Frank Ragnow released that he was coming back to the team. Everyone freaked out. We are all excited, planning the parade. And then, like 2 days later, as quick as it began, it ended. Frank had a grade 3 hamstring injury, which is essentially, and I'm no doctor, essentially what I've read online is that a grade 3 is basically the hamstring coming off the bone. It's like a complete tear of the hamstring. It's not just like you rolled out of bed and you got to, you tweaked your hammy and it hurts a little bit. It's like a severe, severe hamstring. And I guess the story goes that Frank knew about this injury. The Lions knew about this injury, but neither team or neither party really knew the severity of it, which was obviously just crushing. Frank would have done fantastic, even if he wasn't fully healthy. His cognitive abilities and just being able to break down a defense is what this line needs. So we had that. You have the Kirby Joseph thing, who was added. He came back to practice, then he deleted his social media and put something about like, God help me, and everyone was freaking out. But then he was back at practice, and then today he wasn't at practice again. Rumor is that his knee is really screwed up. It's kind of going to be like a long-term arthritis type of thing. That's just the rumor. Then you got Terry and Arnold going on the IR for the rest of the season. He's going to be out. Amon-Ra going down with the ankle injury. Like, it was terrible across the board. A really, really bad week for the Lions. And I get what you're saying about the medical staff. I think everyone online is kind of saying the same thing. Like, what are these guys being paid for? We have guys not only getting hurt left and right, but we also have like weird guys not going on the IR when they've been out 5-6 weeks. Guys going on the IR after 2 to 3 weeks. It's like, what is going on with these? And I think just my long-winded answer is like, I think we're only noticing the injuries so much, like there's so many of them, just because it's our team. We're not really paying attention to offensive linemen on the Atlanta Falcons and their injuries and stuff like that. But I will say, I think it's very not suspicious, but I don't think they're acting properly in the way that they're reporting these injuries. Maybe they're, the diagnosis is a little bit weird and just not upfront with, like I said, the guys who are like out for 2 weeks and then go on the IR, or are out for 6 weeks and never went on the IR. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and that is just as frustrating to me. So I get where you're coming from, Greg.
Yeah, it definitely seems like some things are mismanaged as far as, when we should or shouldn't put a guy in IR. And, again, things can change, and, an injury that you thought was one thing could be another, and, severity could change. So yeah, I don't pretend to know anything about that kind of shit. But yeah, it does seem like we did botch quite a few injuries this year alone, as far as, putting players on IR or not. And I don't know. Again, this might be, mistakes that, every team in the NFL makes throughout the season. It's just, there's a lot of variance. But yeah, we're certainly under the microscope as Lions fans. But yeah, just I love what you said. It was just an overall just horrendous week for Lions football. Not just on the field, but off it too, with all the injuries and Terry and Arnold being out for the season, and Kirby Joseph. Like you said, who knows what's going on there? And then yeah, Frank with the hamstring injury. And you mentioned the severity. I just had to look on Google real quick. The AI overview for a grade 3 hamstring tear. It's a severe, complete tear of the muscle that is often considered a medical emergency. That's what Google says. And it often has to be repaired via surgery. So, yeah, that's...
How do you not know that?
If Frank's just walking around, I mean, it's either just a testament to
he's a tough
Frank's
son of a bitch.
Toughness,
yeah.
And he's like, yeah, this is just, this is what I've been living with, or really probably it is more of a testament to how injured he was throughout his entire career, where he's like, yeah, this is normal, like this, it's a little hamstring tweak, it's normal, Dan, I'll be ready in like a week or two, and then yeah, the physical comes back, and buddy, it's hanging off the bone, like Thanksgiving ham, but yeah, dude, all in all, horrible. Listener Greg, we just want to say thank you for the voicemail again. Yeah, our voicemail 313-306-7939. Please call in. We love shooting the shit with our listeners. It's literally one of, Tyler and I talk about it all the time. It's one of our, most favorite things to do on this podcast is just play voicemails and shoot the shit. So, yeah, shout out listener Greg. But yeah, Lions are cooked. Lions are cooked. Final thought there.
Yeah, the only other injury we had, I mean, I shouldn't say only, there's plenty of other injuries, but one of the other main ones was Brock Wright, who was expected to step up big with Sam Laporta going down for the year with his back injury, which technically I don't think he's out for the year. I think he technically could come back. But Brock Wright going down, he got tackled on the sideline, kind of did a flip. Maybe he had everyone was kind of worried about his head and his neck. I guess he's down for the time being with a trachea injury, which is just like the Lions' luck. And on top of it being such a bad week for the Lions on the field. Like you said, there was still a chance that the Lions could sneak away with the NFC North. And obviously, it's this giant roadmap. This team has to lose to this team. This team's got to win or tie to this team. Pretty much every single one of those went the opposite way of the Lions' luck. So I mean, like we said to open the show, their season is absolutely on life support. And I just don't see how you run it back next year with this coaching staff. Like people have to be held accountable for this. So, yeah, let's go to a quick break, and then when we come back, let's break down the upcoming matchup against the Cowboys, which unfortunately for like the fourth week in a row is a must-win. I didn't do much Cowboys. Oh, I guess I didn't do any.
I got some.
Okay,
I got a little bit. I don't have much either, but I got a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. You want to lead us back in then?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, go ahead.
All right, guys, welcome back. So yeah, Tyler mentioned it right before we went to a break, but I think we can probably stop saying it at this point. But every week is a must-win week. This is definitely a must-win week. Cowboys at Lions. Why don't we guess the line? Why don't we guess the line, Tyler, real quick before we get into this? I think that this is interesting because the Cowboys might be the hottest team in the league. Certainly from an offensive standpoint, they are the hottest team in the league. Their defense still is kind of shit, but yeah, I think that the Lions are going to get, this is similar to Green Bay. I do think that they're going to get a slight bump just being at home. I think that if this was played like, somehow on a neutral field, that it'd probably be a pick 'em. So I think my guess is going to be Lions minus 2.5. Final answer on the line.
Yeah, I mean you're dead right on the fact that it's at home, so it's definitely giving us a little bit of a bump there. Yeah, right now DraftKings has us at Detroit Lions -3, so they're giving us a little bit more of a bump than that. I don't like that line whatsoever. I agree completely with you that the Cowboys are one of the hottest teams in the league. The issue with the Cowboys is that I guess almost like the Lions in that like. The Cowboys are so up and down. Like you don't know exactly what Dak you're going to get. Their defense isn't that great, so they're very much up and down. In which the Lions are kind of just down, but you know how good they can be. So like they haven't really hit their up recently, but you know how good that up can be, and that's why I kind of think these are two teams that are very similar. So Dallas sits at 6-5-1. Obviously, they had a tie with the Packers. That was right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the Packers.
Yeah, so I mean, just looking at this Packers or this Cowboys offense, they're second in the NFL with points per game sitting at 29. Outside of that, right in the middle of the pack with rushing yards per game, 13 with 121.8. They've had it's a really great story with Javonte Williams. He's been a fantastic fantasy running back. Never really never really caught on there in Denver. Having a great season there for the rushing game for the Cowboys. But then passing is where you know that they're going to beat teams. Dak can still sling it. I mean, he has been in the league a lot longer than I realized. And I think he goes up and down. That's probably how the Cowboys go up and down. But Dak is a really good gunslinger. And then CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens have been insane. I mean, I would argue they're two of the top duos in the NFL this season. George Pickens has been phenomenal for them. So stopping that trio and on top of it, sprinkling in a little Javonte Williams is going to be a pretty good test for this Lions defense that hasn't proven to be able to do anything really.
100%. And I would even go a step further that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are the best 1-2 punch in football right now from a receiving standpoint. Like they've been amazing. And I think that the Cowboys, at the time that Pickens trade, I think most people were like, yeah, it's a pretty good trade. And I think now you look back at it and you're like, oh my God, what a fleecing. George Pickens really just needed a quarterback. He didn't, if you look back in, his Steelers days, he didn't really have a quarterback at all. He had fucking Kenny Pickett thrown to him. And,
yeah.
I don't know if he might have caught the last year of Big Ben. Probably not. But either way, man, like, yeah, George Pickens, like, he's incredible. He's been incredible with Dak. Yeah, you mentioned it. They are the number one passing attack in the league. Like, they're carving up teams left and right. And yeah, I am very nervous. You kind of started with the Cowboys offense. Let's keep going there. And the Lions defense. I'm very nervous. I'm extremely nervous that how are you going to stop this Cowboys team when, if you're the Lions, you've proven you can't really stop people. And you certainly can't get to the quarterback. And I do think if Dak's a quarterback where, like, if you're giving him time, he will carve you up like Thanksgiving turkey. And we haven't, you mentioned a bunch of times, you broke it down with great numbers, Tyler, but we have not been able to get to the quarterback all fucking year. So yeah, this is This is a nervous one for me. I do think in a game where, yeah, very tight spread, probably a very high scoring game. I don't have the over under in front of me. This has to be the highest over under of the weekend. Like, I mean, I know it's a Thursday night game, but each of these teams has had a full week of rest. This has got to be a high over under, certainly in the 50s. I think in a shootout like this, you need to win the turnover battle if you're the Lions. Like, it's going to come down to that, like we said, those intangibles, that game of inches. And yeah, we haven't been great. I don't have the numbers in front of me. We're not the Jets, obviously. We definitely have some turnovers, but I would have to imagine we are, maybe middle of the pack at best in terms of turning the ball over, or turning the other team over, I should say. So something's got to give there, because otherwise, this Cowboys offense is gonna carve you up.
Would it surprise you to know that the Lions are one of two teams, along with the New York Giants, to have, I think it's 2 different games with no sacks and no takeaways in the NFL this season?
It would not surprise me at all. It does pain me to hear that, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, so the over-under this week is 54.5. So like you said, extremely high. I would take the over just because the Cowboys defense isn't that great. We can get to them in a second. But I honestly just don't know if the Lions offense can do their part, which is crazy to say a year after having one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. But just looking at some stats, we mentioned it. They are the number one passing offense in the NFL. Their turnover margin is right in the middle of the pack. And the last thing I'll say with the Cowboys offense is that when we're talking about the defense and how much the defensive line struggles and how it really hurts the back end, the Cowboys offensive line, I think they're like top 3, or excuse me, they are 3rd in the NFL with sacks given up per game at just 1.4. So this is a pretty good offensive line that I know is banged up a little bit, but it's something that, like, this defense, our defensive line already struggles, and we're going up against one of the best NFL teams at keeping the QBs to get sacked per game. And so it's gonna put a lot on the secondary, and if you let those receivers go running wild, we might be in for a long day.
Yeah, this is, like we said, this is a game where, I mean, the Lions have to have it. The Lions basically have to go perfect throughout the rest of the season, and I'm not confident. We were not confident at all going into this Green Bay game. Obviously, coming off that Giants game that you should have lost, and then you kind of get your asses kicked at home against Green Bay. Like, nothing about this team screams like playoff push. I've said it before time and time again, but yeah, now obviously the Athletic has us at only a 30% chance to make the playoffs. Granted, that will increase a bit for sure with this win, and then obviously, next week you have the Rams at LA, another must win. So our odds will of course increase with 2 wins here, but yeah, I'm just not feeling super confident. If you just going over to the other side of the ball, the Lions offense, yes, they've been stagnant at times, but they were still one of the best offenses in the league. They average over 29 points per game. Granted, that Bears game is probably inflating things just a little bit, but still, even take that game out, we're still probably averaging 27 or 28 points a game. Yeah, still one of the best offenses in the league, but throw in not having your safety blanket, one of your best players in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then another prolific pass catcher who does the gritty, the dirty work in Laporta. He's out. Obviously, we talked about that. Probably this for the whole season. We don't know for certain, but he's certainly out for this game. And yeah, this offense, those are 2 playmakers that you just don't have anymore. So that's obviously gonna come into play. Cowboys defense on the other side of the ball, they're bad. They're very bad. They are 29th in the league. They give up 376 yards per game. They've given up 41 touchdowns this season. Their rush defense is better than their pass defense. They also did, went and traded for Quinnen Williams. No clue if he's been, good for them or not, but I think he got a sack in his first game. So he's still a great player. So yeah, that pass, or I should say that pass rush, but also the run defense probably helps having him there. But they still only rank 20th in their rush defense. But yeah, the pass defense is just horrendous. They give up just a shitload of points. I think if you're a Cowboys fan, it's almost like, every game that you're in is going to be a shootout. So I don't know if that's it's a good thing or bad thing. I think it's fun. From an outside perspective, that's definitely fun, but the Lions are going to be in it, and I don't know. You're going to have to score points. You're going to have to score a ton of points because this Cowboys offense is so awesome. And probably the best in the league right now. And, they're coming off 2 huge wins against, both Super Bowl teams from last year, the Chiefs and the Eagles. And the Cowboys have beaten them in consecutive games. So it's almost like, something's got to give. And I really hope that they've kind of, exhausted themselves the last 2 games. And we probably, maybe get their B or their C game versus their A game. But yeah, if we get their A game, I'm not I'm not looking forward to this game.
Yeah, so their defensive line, on top of their defense just being, bottom of the league, their defense line is exactly middle of the league at 15, with sacks per game with 2.3. So they're a little bit worse than Detroit. But you actually just convinced me that I think like they're going to be coming off of those two big wins. Detroit's really struggling. We're going to be at home. As that just shows how easily convinced my dumb brain is that, like, I think we win this game because I think. I think they just kind of they're just kind of riding those highs, and we can kind of take it to them at home. Yeah, you want to wrap up with some in between the lines, which one or two matchups that in this game you're going to be looking towards?
Yeah, so for sure, and we definitely already hit on this, but my between the lines, I'm going to go with the Lions pass rush versus Dak versus this Dallas offensive line, and if we see any kind of changes or maybe I don't know if luck is involved at all, but something has got to give. This Lions pass rush, Hutch included, you need more out of Hutch. You're asking a lot out of him. You're also paying him the most in the league, non-quarterback. So I think it's very warranted that you're asking a lot out of this guy. And he's incredible, but he didn't get it done against Green Bay. And you definitely need more out of him. So I'm definitely looking at our pass rush. Can we get to Dak? If we can't get to Dak, like we, couldn't get to Jordan Love at times on Thanksgiving, it's going to be a long-ass day. And CeeDee Lamb's going to feast, and George Pickens is going to feast, and Jake Ferguson's going to feast. So, yeah, that's really what I'm looking at. I think if the Lions are going to see some success if they can get to Dak.
Yeah, 100%. My in between the lines, the one matchup I'm going to be looking towards, on top of yours, I mean, that's going to be us for the rest of the season, is looking at Hutch and the defensive line providing pressure. I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Just Jahmyr Gibbs gashing this defense. We already mentioned how the Cowboys defense is somehow worse than the Lions. And so I think Jahmyr just absolutely runs all over them. I think he catches all over them as well with whether or not Amon-Ra, who is day to day, it's hard to say whether he's going to be playing or not. I think Gibbs out of the backfield catching the ball is also going to be something big. So, all right, let's jump over to some college football. We don't always have a lot of time to get into college football, but we had some pretty major things going on this past week with Michigan and Michigan State. So let's get to some college football and then wrap up the show with Grit of the Week. You have some word from our sponsors, though.
Yeah, before we get into college football, this college football segment is brought to you by our great friends at Cozy Earth, our great friends. Cozy Earth's luxurious bamboo bedding and pajamas, which are loved by Oprah, Kris Jenner, and thousands of customers, offer the ultimate in softness and cooling comfort. Our listeners can enjoy an exclusive 41% discount with promo code GRIT. That's promo code GRIT at checkout for 41% off your first purchase. So head on over to CozyEarth.com, put in that promo code GRIT, get those pajamas, that bedding for your loved ones. Holiday season is here. Before you know it, it's going to be Christmas. You're going to want to get that ordered now. I know I certainly will. And 41% off. So you can't beat that promo code GRIT. But yeah, let's jump into a little bit of college football. Where do you want to start? I mean, obviously we are Michigan State grads, a bunch of buzz around Michigan State football and Michigan State athletics right now. Do you want to start there? You want to start with U of M, also had a big game against Ohio State?
Yeah, let's start, because I think we probably have a little bit more to talk about with Michigan State. Let's start with the Spartans. All season, obviously, the year went terribly. Comparing it with the Lions really struggling. It was a tough year football-wise for us Spartan fans. Dealing with the Lions and the Spartans there. But Jonathan Smith just wasn't getting it done. So it was kind of early on that everyone realized that it wasn't going to happen. They ended up moving away from Aiden Childs, started going with the redshirt freshman, Alessio Milivojevic. The big question, though, was whether Jonathan Smith was going to be sticking around for next year. We saw all these coaches be fired, James Franklin, all those guys. And I think that Jonathan Smith's buyout was somewhere around $30 million. So the big question was, did we want to eat that $30 million and move on from him after just 1.25 year? Was he going to just finish out the season and then be cut? Was he going to go into next year? We didn't really know. We finally got some answers this week, just shortly after the Spartans actually beat Maryland down at Ford Field, which was actually a pretty fun game to go at. We almost blew it. A shout out to them for actually not blowing it. But we got our answer. Jonathan Smith was fired by the Spartans. He will not be finishing out the year. Taking over as interim head coach is Joe Rossi. And the other big news is Pat Fitzgerald is now hired to be Michigan State's newest head coach. Pat Fitzgerald, the former head coach for the Northwestern Wildcats. We can go into his numbers here in a minute. But it sounds like there's a number of big sponsors behind him that are planning on pouring in a good amount of money into the program to get behind him, try and get this this program back on tracks. But Pat Fitzgerald, newest Michigan State head coach for the Spartans.
Yeah, it's huge. And like literally while you were saying Pat Fitzgerald, his face is popping up. I got the Michigan State versus Iowa basketball game on right now at home at the Breslin Center, and I don't know if it was during the timeout or maybe earlier before the game started, but Pat Fitzgerald is there, and it looked like he was riling up the fans. I don't have the sound on obviously, but he looked absolutely pumped. And yeah, man, I think that like just in general that it's a really good hire, but when you consider this just chaotic coaching carousel that's going on in college football right now, in so many programs that are leaps and bounds ahead of Michigan State, and like they have vacancies. I'm looking at Florida, I'm looking at LSU, so many vacancies around college football, and Michigan State's probably, I don't know, 9th or 10th on that totem pole for getting coaches. I think when you consider all of that in that landscape, that this Pat Fitzgerald hire is just, it's an absolute slam dunk, considering where we are right now. And I just think that he's the perfect man for the job. Obviously, he had, a ton of success at Northwestern. It wasn't all perfect. The end of his tenure wasn't great, but just in general, to win at Northwestern, I think is just, it's incredibly hard to do, to win at that program. He's, I think, the most winningest coach at Northwestern, is win by win percentage and by wins, 3 10-win seasons. So yeah, I think all in all, like this is absolutely the best hire that you could have had. And yeah, I hope that we get back to peaks of that we had in the mid 2000s with Mark D'Antonio. I think that Pat Fitzgerald might be the guy for the job, but that the announcements didn't stop there. Today, actually, Michigan State also announced a $1 billion called the For Sparta fundraising campaign, which is all about upgrading athletic facilities, and it has to do with I think with NIL as well with Spartan Ventures. But the big thing, there was a rendering of a potentially new Spartan Stadium, or it's still the current Spartan Stadium, but with massive upgrades. So obviously it's just a rendering, but yeah, I think it's it's Jay Batt, the athletic director. It seems like he's making as many moves as possible right now, and I'm pretty pumped. We haven't been able to say we are pumped for Spartan football in a very long time. So I like the direction they're going.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's some sort of juice and energy to this program, because it's been so vanilla and shit vanilla for the last 4 years since Mel Tucker. And yeah, I mean, that's what J-Bat does. J-Bat came to Michigan State as being known as this philanthropist, a guy who can rally the troops and fundraise and everything. So he's doing what we brought him on to do. As far as Pat Fitzgerald goes, so Pat Fitzgerald, former linebacker, he was coaching at his alma mater, Northwestern, when he had all that success for them there. I will say, obviously, we have to address the elephant in the room. Pat Fitzgerald was fired kind of unceremoniously due to a hazing scandal that's going on at Northwestern. He did go through proceedings and was put on trial. It was proven that he had no knowledge of the hazing scandal. Say what you want about that. Whether, you want to say, how would he not know things going on in his own program? Is that good? Is that bad? Whatever. At least it didn't, according to the court of law, know about the hazing scandal. So you can kind of move on from that. But even past that, you looking at his last 2 years at Northwestern, he went 3-9 and 1-11. He had, I think, three 10-win seasons at Northwestern, which I know everyone will point to and say, like, yeah, that's really great at Northwestern, because no one cares about football at Northwestern. It's really hard to win there. And I just don't want to put too much emphasis on that. And so, like, I agree with you. This was a great hire. This was one of the best hires in the cycle. Is really, I don't really know who else would want to come to Michigan State and hire and coach us at this moment. So it was the best that we were given. I just, I don't think it was 100% like a home run hit, but I do like the culture that he's going to be bringing here. He's kind of a player's guy, and other than the issues that he's having at Northwestern, seems like the right guy for the fit. And then, like you said, with the fundraising, it seems like the donors all have his back. That's the only way that this is going to work, is if we're able to dump a bunch of money into this program, kind of turn it around, really attack the NIL. It's going to be interesting, because Pat Fitzgerald has been out of coaching for 3-4 years, and that's when NIL is really taking form. So as long as we have the donors backing him money-wise, there's rumors of a $400 million kind of influx kind of on its way. Who knows if that's true or not, or who it's from and everything. But as long as the donors are backed behind him, I think he will be at least set up to have success. Now, will he actually be able to do that? God, I hope so. We can't take any more bad football in East Lansing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, it's all money talks, and say what you want. We've talked like probably at nauseum about this current landscape of college football, and it's literally pay to play. But yeah, we're not paying right now. We straight up are not spending enough money, and when we are, it's there's so much wrong with what the Spartans are currently doing. But yeah, I'm hoping this new Spartan Ventures, the new NIL, I'm really hoping that initiative is going to help us. This is an age of college football where you have to be spending $20 million every single year on your roster. And yeah, until we have some kind of salary cap or any, checks and balances in place, that's the lay of the land. So yeah, I think we have, we obviously have, the billionaires to get that done. We have a gigantic alumni base, probably one of the biggest in the country. So yeah, I like the momentum. You mentioned the momentum. It seems like it's going in the right direction, and yeah, it's much needed. I think we're in obviously a much better spot than we were, last week. So I'm pumped for that.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, so he was signed to a 5-year contract that was actually money-wise and salary-wise was quite low. It was very incentive-laden, which is something I'm happy to see after having to shell out $30 million to Jonathan Smith after just a year and a half. The other thing to kind of track, transfer portal guys now. So you had Mekhi Frazier enter the transfer portal. Kind of was expected that he was going to, even if we kept Jonathan Smith. You had Nick Marsh entering the transfer portal. Someone that, again, kind of expected him to go off to greener pastures with the offense that we've had the last few years with him. The two guys, obviously, everyone's waiting on is Alessio Milivojevic and Aiden Childs. I have heard that there is a decision on both of them. It just hasn't been announced as to if they're both staying, if they're both leaving, one leaving, one staying, stuff of that nature. So kind of something to keep an eye on over the next few weeks as these guys start talking to Fitzgerald and start to trying to figure out if this is still the place for them. But
I heard Alessio was at the press conference. That's not confirmed. I think I just got a text from it, but
confirmed he was.
I think that tells you everything you need to know, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of what everyone expects. Alessio will be staying, and Childs will be leaving, and that even with Jonathan Smith, you expected that to be the case there. So, let's jump over to the other side of the state, the team down the street, Michigan versus the Ohio State Buckeyes played obviously in the game this week. I thought for a chance Michigan was going to come away like in the first 5 minutes of this game. Michigan came out hot. Was it Jordan Marshall had like a 50-yard run. Michigan goes down, kicks a field goal, and then immediately an interception, kicks another field goal. They're up 6-0, and then Ohio State smushed them into the ground. Ohio State ends up winning 27-9. If you're Michigan, this one definitely hurts because I think this was a kind of shining a light on Bryce Underwood. He finished the day 8 of 18 for 63 yards and an interception, no touchdowns. I mean, this was a rough day for the Wolverines and all facets, coaching, offense, defense, everything.
Yeah, you really thought, you mentioned it, but they rip off that big run. They jump up to an early 3-0 lead, and then I think on the ensuing drive, Julian Sain throws an interception, and you're like, oh my God,
it's happening again.
You're thinking to yourself, Ohio State has a Michigan problem. They can't beat these guys. It's happening again. And then probably from that point forward, I don't know, I don't have the total yardages in front of me, but I think that Jordan Marshall run might have been like half of Michigan's total yards on the day. They were just absolutely horrendous, and I think it's probably more of a testament to how good Ohio State is. I don't think Michigan is as bad as they played, but Ohio State's a juggernaut, and I really don't think they're losing this season. I think they're probably going to go back to back. Not a hot take at all. They're better than they were last year, and that's pretty crazy to say. They're coming off a national championship, but that was just Bryce. I mean, granted, he's young. He's a true freshman quarterback. I do think he's going to get better. Do I think he's going to get a lot better? I don't know. The jury might be out on that, but certainly I think it's a little bit of a kick in the dick for a guy that you're given $3 million a year to, and or $2 million, whatever he's making. I don't even know what he's making, but millions of dollars, and just to go 8 of 18 against your rival at home. It's just horrendous. I think he only threw the ball 5 times in the first half too. So a lot of his play calling, obviously they don't trust this kid to throw. If that's the case, then why is he in the game? Obviously you're paying him so much. You probably want to play him. So that's not Bryce Underwood's fault. He's getting that money, but there's certainly pressures at bay to probably play him, but he's not ready yet. And he definitely proved that. All season. I think does he have 10 touchdowns on the season? Alessio Milojevic has 10 touchdowns in 4 games started. So and that's not even stellar numbers. I think that's more or less average, right? You would say in college football. So this kid he's not good enough yet. He's going to improve. I know that. Next year is completely different, but as of right now, I think if you're Michigan, you're definitely scratching your head. Sharon Moore I think even if Michigan fans will say he's not the guy, and yet you probably have to keep him around for at least one more season. It just doesn't seem like, especially with this current coaching carousel having pretty much ended that ride. So yeah, it's not great. And then you see your rival who's been very much down for the past 3 years, and big time hire, spending a lot of money, hopefully turning the corner there. I think if you're Michigan, you're looking over your shoulder a little bit right now, and that is not something I thought I was going to say at any point during this season.
Yeah, I like I said, I want to see a little bit from Pat Fitzgerald before I start getting any sort of hopes up about like what this team can be. What did you think of Michigan, the post-game antics with them guarding the M as Ohio State just like celebrated in the stands with their fans? What do you think of that whole saga about them? Like it seemed like Ohio State had no intentions of doing anything of that sorts, but Michigan was like blocking the M. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, dude. I thought just like they looked so childish doing that too. Just a horrendous look to get your ass kicked up and down the field, and then try to protect that block M. Like, yeah, dude, he probably should have done a little bit of a better job protecting that turf while you were actually playing the game, and probably worrying a little bit less about what you're going to do after the game. It's a really bad look. I think if you're Ohio State, like, yeah, they didn't seem to care at all. They were like, yeah, we're just going to kick your ass and have fun celebrating and then get the fuck out, because yeah, we literally don't care about you. We win national championships, and yeah, and we're gonna kick your ass. That was the Ohio State mentality, at least on Saturday. It's something that we haven't seen in 4 seasons. It's been all Michigan for the past 5 seasons before Saturday. So yeah, you can't always beat your rival, but yeah, I thought it was just a horrendous look to get your ass kicked and then play those childish games after. Ohio State just took the higher path, and they looked damn good doing it, and from an optics standpoint, they looked even better.
Yeah, I think real quick, just to touch on before we get to grid of the week, I think Ohio State played that perfectly, in which like they like downplayed the entire game of like, no, we do, this isn't new to us. Like we've been here, we acting like we've been here before, which is like exactly what if you just got your ass kicked, exactly what you don't want to happen. Yeah, so I think I'm on the same page with you there. So, all right, let's get to some grit of the week. Before we do get to grit of the week, as always, the grit of the week is brought to you by Pins and Aces, our friends over there at pinsandaces.com. I love to golf. I may not be any good at it, but what I do know is that I love getting out, having some drinks on the course, enjoying the weather, hanging out with our friends, and I love to look good doing it. If I'm not going to be any good at the actual golf, you know damn well I'm going to look good while I'm doing it. I'm going to look good while I'm searching for my ball in the woods and trying to reach for my ball that's in the lake. Pins and Aces is a Colorado-based golf brand making premium polos, head covers, and gear that perform on the course and stand out everywhere else. This is all stuff that's made in the USA with quality you can absolutely feel, and you can enjoy an exclusive discount to our listeners with our promo code GRIT, that's GRIT, at pinsandaces.com. Again, get that loved one in your life who maybe isn't so good at golf, but you know that they want to look good and feel good while they're out there. Get them something from Pins and Aces. That's 21% off any product, because you know what they say. You look good, you feel good, you play good. Maybe by getting them something from pinsandaces.com, you'll actually help their golf game. So shout out to Pins and Aces. Thank you for always sponsoring Grit of the Week. I'll kick us off with my Grit of the Week. And first and foremost, I was going to say nobody. I was going to give Grit of the Week to no one. I know I did this actually. I think it was actually week 1, the last time we played the Packers, in which I gave Grit of the Week to nobody. And I was going to do that again just because it was another piss poor effort and nobody deserves it. But I decided better. I thought there was definitely at least some guys out there that deserve it. So I'm going to go with my Grit of the Week, our sweet prince, Tom Kennedy. We already talked about him. Everyone in the Lions organization loves him. Everyone absolutely, he like I said, he comes out and he plays so well every preseason. He just kind of does the work. He's a grinder, and then he gets cut and put on the practice squad every single start of the season. But he had a great game on on Thursday. He is actually one of the only Lions players in history to produce a game with a 30-plus yard kickoff return, a 20-plus yard punt return, and a 20-plus yard reception. It is him, Mel Gray, and Ray Williams are the only 3 in Lions history to do it. Obviously, on Thursday, he finished the day with 4 catches for 36 yards, average of 9 yards, and on his 4 targets. So shout out Tom Kennedy, our sweet, sweet prince, stepping up when we needed him to, when everyone else goes down. My Grit of the Week.
Tommy Kennedy, man, he's answering the call. Like when the Lions need him most, he's he's goddamn Batman, man. He's coming out. He's gonna get you 4 grabs for 36 yards. He's gonna look damn gritty while he does it. So yeah, shout out Tom Kennedy there. My grade of the week, I was gonna go with Cade because he's incredible. Last night, just a game sealing, just the most absurd layup where he literally diced up all 5. I'm even drawing a blank on who they were playing last night, but whoever they were, just 5 guys were diced up. Yeah. The Hawks. By Cade, like he, crossovered one and then spin move to get around another one, and then 3 guys in the paint, and he's just an acrobatic layup to go up 4. That ended up being the game-sealing layup there. So shout out Cade, but I'm actually going to give my grid of the week to Jeremy Fears Jr., the floor general. He's been awesome, man, and it kind of came to my mind. I'm actually watching this game right now while we're recording this podcast, but yeah, dude, the things that Jeremy has done this year, he's just, improved in so many ways. He's averaging 12 points now, 10 rebounds a game, 10 assists a game. So he's averaging a double-double there. His free throws have improved just, immensely. He's shooting 88% from the line as well. His 10 assists are, I believe he's leading the country in both assists and assists per game. And if he's not anymore, he's, still probably top 5 in that department, but just playing really well. He's, he's scoring as well, like I mentioned. Super impressed with his assist to turnover ratio too. That 10 assists only comes with 2 turnovers per game. Just an incredible assist to turnover ratio. So he's taking care of the ball as well as dishing it out at just the highest clip of his career, one of the highest in the entire country. So yeah, just wanted to give that young man just a huge shout out, man. Jeremy Fears, grit of the week.
He's a quintessential Tom Izzo point guard. Like he's playing so well. If his scoring continues to come around a little bit, he's going to lead this team to do great things. Great college basketball in general in the state of Michigan. Yeah, shout out Cade. I want to give him a shout out too. He was just named Player of the Month in the NBA for the Eastern Conference. The team went 16-4 over the month. He averaged 28.8 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, and 9.4 assists per game. So Cade definitely deserves to get a shout out there. But yeah, the Fear General, Jeremy Fears, he's absolutely insane. I can't wait to see where he takes this team come March. And just actually the last thing I'll say, just this has nothing to do with this, but as I was giving my grid of the week and talking about Tom Kennedy and how he is always a preseason darling, made me think, and I wanted to ask you this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Are we concerned at all that the Lions are now cursed because we cut Craig Reynolds? Dude, we didn't even talk about it.
Hang on, when did we cut Craig Reynolds? He's been on the team this year, right?
Yeah, he's been on the team this year. Classic Craig. He's gotten less run this year as he has in a few years, the last few years, where he'll get a run every now and again. He hasn't really played this year. We cut him last week, and he was scooped up by the Patriots, if I remember correctly. And so I don't believe in that sort of stuff, but I'm kind of worried that there's going to be a curse on this team for cutting Craig Reynolds. That's the one thing you don't do.
Wow, dude.
Sione Vakai.
I had to worry about this too much this season, but in years past we've had running back injuries, and Craig's always stepping up, man. So that definitely sucks. I had no idea he got cut until this very moment, but yeah, we might be cursed.
Brad Holmes, in a season that's going so far off the rails, why would you make it that much worse and even tempt fate like that? So, hey, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, now you have to trade for him. He was on your team. Now you got to go and trade for him. So make it right. This team can't get any worse. The season's almost on. It's on life support. Don't put us through this. Go out and trade for Craig Reynolds because we absolutely need him here. But yeah, that just came to my mind as I was going through the grid of the week. So, okay. Wow. That's our show. Thank you for tuning in this week's episode. You can find both Kyle and I on Twitter at Kyle_Marino and myself at Dut_Tyler. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram or TikTok at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, or you can watch us on YouTube at Gridiron Report. Finally, join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That phone number is 313-306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars. Leave us a nice little review saying so. Follow us on all forms of social media. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, y'all. Restore the roar.
Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retired, grit iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on, blast beats, thundering loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The gridiron report where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow. Make your fandom a vow.